Good morning. It is Sunday, fairly early in the morning, post-competition day for Sidewinder Jiu-Jitsu and our competition athletes. Just had a showing at Jiu-Jitsu World League. So if you find yourself here and you're not one of my students, then welcome. Feel free to come back here. JITS University is one of my outlets, so to speak, for my students and how I can give them a greater connection to myself, so maybe to understand my philosophies and just kind of get an insight into my mind. So it's more of a opportunity to sit down with my students outside the mat. So if you find yourself here, you're not one of my students, welcome. If you are one of my students, I want to congratulate you if you were competing. There were some fantastic performances yesterday. So it occurred to me that the conundrum, the NoGi conundrum, is quite distinct in our community, and I want to address with my people my opinion and the popularity of NoGi versus gi. Now, inside the walls of our academy, we have those pundits and apologists for gi and NoGi, and we have those folks who there's always a healthy bantering back and forth. Case in point, on Friday it is a recognized NoGi day, and we have half the lineup standing there in the gi. So I'd like to say that the vast majority of my academy are purists for the art. They would consider themselves more refined, and we're going to address that a little bit because I'm going to post for those of you who are my students, I'm going to post this on SportsU, and there's also going to be a link of a discussion with a NoGi pundit. This is a person who does both, as well as myself, and it's his opinion. And I think it was a very good opinion, and it really, really closely parallels that of my own, and I wanted you guys to understand that. So, NoGi versus gi. It's pretty simple. I think fundamentally and at its core, I think it's very important, but I think there's some things that we should recognize. I think the NoGi aspect of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is a lesser refined variant of the art. I think it's that way, and I think that is an aspect of the art that allows those who have a less, sometimes, especially initially, I think you have less attention, less patience for the art. I think it allows you to scratch that itch, so to speak, and look for success. Now, this is not meant to insult anybody, because I myself went through the very same evolution as a jiu-jitsu fighter. When you first get in and you go to your first couple tournaments, you get a hold of somebody who is just exceptional at whatever level, insert level here. They're exceptional at control. They've been coached well. Excuse me while I take a drink of coffee. They've been coached well, and their control is exceptional. And this athlete finds themselves having limited success for 1, 2, 3, however many tournaments. You can go back and quote one of Buchecha's things that he said one time, and that I think he said he lost like his first 9 tournaments or something, never won a match, and we all know what he went on to do. So but these were gi tournaments, and that goes to show you that the level of control when you put the gi on is in another dimension. Somebody that is a almost exclusively NoGi practitioner is going to go. The gap is narrower. And what I mean by that is when a person is mostly a NoGi practitioner, they may be, a blue belt, they're going to be able to go up and have a little bit of success against a belt 1 or 2 belts higher than them, and sometimes they're even going to have some success against black belts. And I'll quote one of my most difficult roles in my history in my memory of the art as a black belt, having rolled with an MMA fighter. I'd been out for about a year with a broken collarbone, come back. Ignorantly came back to a NoGi class thinking, I'm just going to work my way back into it, and rolling with a blue belt, a young man who's probably 19 or 20 years old. No, he's probably early 20s. Had half a dozen fights under his belt, MMA fights under his belt. And I'm going to tell you, that guy, smaller than me. I mean, he ran me all over the place. I was struggling just to catch him, just to get a hold of him. Finally, ultimately got a hold of him after about 7 or 8 minutes and was able to kind of get my bearings and put in some work on the kid. But God Almighty, it was a bad way to come back. And I felt terrible about myself. I was like, did my skill set diminish that much? And I'm sure it did. But the bottom line of it was NoGi. That alone, narrows the gap between skill sets. You can take a person who's extremely proficient at jiu-jitsu and take a person who's not and has a few spectacular attributes. Take a person who's extremely proficient in the gi black belt level, and then take a blue belt out there that's got speed, strength, size. They're going to do a lot of good. So I want to say it's kind of a Band-Aid. And for those that are kind of ADD, I mean that in a good way, or jiu-jitsu autistic, can only focus on one aspect of the art and they need that immediate gratification, they're going to find that NoGi is a lot more stimulating, at least in the beginning. And then a lot of times they go through this evolution and they rotate back to wanting to be involved in NoGi or gi as the game slows down. Now, let's talk a little history. Historically, you can ask people who were aware of the Luta Libre faction of jiu-jitsu when it splintered off. And there's a lot of conjecture about who did what and what the reasoning was behind it. But the way I understood it and the way I've seen it is that really it can only be attributed to one or two things. And one of the biggest was ego. Those individuals who were well connected within the jiu-jitsu community as it was, the proliferation of it was being seen, they were kind of excluded because they weren't well known. The belting, they were not included in the belting procedures. Those individuals that started to expand Luta Libre aspect of it were initially trying to involve themselves in the traditional purist aspect of the art, purist form of the art, and they were kind of rejected. And then came along the ego of, well, we don't need your belts. And then came along the discovery that, well, when we don't have gis on, and you don't have a gi on, it's much easier for us to perform. We don't need your high-level skill set. We'll figure it out on our own. A supporting evidentiary fact of that would be the performance of Royce Gracie in the UFC's 1 through 5 or whatever it was historically. How he came out wearing the gi. Guys, there's a reason why he wore the gi against dudes that were in later events damn near naked. They were all but willing to disrobe completely to avoid the effectiveness of the gi. They didn't realize at the time that it was kind of one-sided. If he's wearing it, it's just as good of a benefit to him if you're wearing it. They tried to argue backstage that he had to take the gi off because it was that devastating to their game. So historically, when we look back, you see the significance of the gi, not just as a ceremonial piece of attire, more so as a tool, okay? It's important for you to realize that. Those of you students who are watching this right now, very important to realize that the gi is a tool. And gi is a much slower aspect of our art. So we saw that kind of yesterday at Jiu-Jitsu World League. My students, to remain nameless, fairly newly promoted, went out and went against somebody that was much higher level skill set than them, and the style of jiu-jitsu that they were used to wasn't even represented. There was no control. It was straight into a rolling ankle lock, and then that was the end of the game. $150 later, thank you for your payment, and welcome to the tournament. Have a nice day. See you later. Bye. And that's sort of how it works in NoGi, right? The belt divisions are not you're not organized respective to your belt ranks. So a blue belt can go against a purple belt, whatever, novice, beginner, intermediate, whatever the hell the rankings are. You don't put people, at least in this event, you didn't put people in ranks, specific ranks. So That's just the way it is. I would like to say that the two styles of jiu-jitsu, on one hand, I want to say the two styles of jiu-jitsu are completely opposite and they ought to be their own thing. And then on the other side, I want to say that it's not, because I came up training gi and no gi. But let me tell you how I was brought up. And this is the way I think you should approach it if you're a student of mine. I say 50-50, but I also say sort of bifurcate your mind and your thought process to understand that the no-gi element is a less refined, less, I'm going to say this carefully, requires less, I don't want to say skill because there's highly skilled no-gi guys. It's like chess versus checkers. Might be the easiest way to say. Kind of. It just, the bottom line is it requires less technical ability. That's just the bottom line in terms of gripping and control, because you don't have 50% more of the game to use against a person. So I want to make sure people understand. I was brought up looking at it like it's 50-50. You need to work both, but I was also taught you need to become proficient in the gi first. Hyper proficient in the gi, which is why after I'd say about blue belt, I started really pretty much swinging over exclusively to the gi. And it seemed to me that in the later stages, no gi came a lot easier, although the minute I took the gi off, I thought, well, shit, this sucks, man. I don't have any grips. I can't do anything with these guys. It's just, and by the time they get sweaty, now it's like two pigs rolling around together in a mud pool. I mean, it's pointless. Now, those of you guys that know me, you know that I look for practical application over sport in everything that we do, meaning I try to make sure that our art crosses over, our skill sets cross over to street applicability. Now, unless you're doing some funsies, everybody's wearing clothes. I'll let you determine what funsies are. Everybody's wearing clothes on the street. Now, I will say that there have been one or two instances where some mentally deranged individual, me being a police officer, has, and they're on PCP or sweating or whatever, it's turned into an encounter, and I'm going, hell, this is a lot like a no-gi session. I digress. That is rare. So everybody wears clothes. I think gi is a better crossover. If the clothing aspect of it weren't so important, why would the rules say that you can't grab the pants, you can't grab the rash guard, you can't grab any of that? That's the whole element of that faction. They don't want you grabbing anything. They don't want that. In this link I'm going to post, this gentleman makes a reference to Adam Wardzinski and says, okay, if you think that the two aren't the same, then take this guy that's this skill level and tell him to go roll with Adam Wardzinski, and I guarantee you he's just going to get his ass whipped for 10 minutes. He ain't going to do shit. And that's the truth. That's the fact. A grappler that engages in gi, for the most part, is going to be more technically proficient in the control element of the game. When you take a no-gi player and try to push him over to gi, it doesn't translate the same. Now, if you go the opposite direction with it, it translates. It's kind of funny how that works. You take a person that's done gi and take them and put them in no-gi, if they're being taught correctly, if they're being taught from the start aspects of the game that cross over. And what I mean by that is they have a coach that tries to make sure that the art that they use largely crosses over. That's what I've always tried to do. My coach tried to do the same thing. And that's that MMA focus to say, okay, well, what aspects of jiu-jitsu cross over? Consequently, butterfly. It's one of the reasons why we use butterfly so much, because it does have a lot of crossover. You can use butterfly both no-gi and you can use butterfly gi. Now, there's going to be people that argue you can use every one of them, and that's true, you can, but some are more well adapted for crossing over into both realms, meaning you may not need the gi for every single one of them, i.e. our close guard pursuits as of late. Very functionally adaptable to both. Front seat belt, overhook the arm, underhook the arm. These are things that if you add the gi to it, it only enhances what's already there, and that's the way I try to teach my jiu-jitsu. But if you take a person that has never worked gi and they work no gi all the time, they come in and now they have the grips. It doesn't just, now I have the grips. Now I know where to grab and I know this and I know that. It doesn't work the same way. If you take a guy that's done gi and drop them down to NoGi, they're going to have more success, I think, than if they had just come in and started learning NoGi, which is why I fundamentally disagree that these schools that bring people in and they only exclusively teach NoGi, they don't teach the gi. I think you're wrong there. I think, and an argument can be made either way. I could have a black belt sitting here making an argument to the backside of me that would be probably perfectly legitimate. This is just my opinion, which is why I say I think you need to do both. But I also think that if you're going to be a true student of jiu-jitsu, you need to make sure that your basis for comparison rests in the gi. That's the main thing I want to say here, is to make sure that you're gauging yourself and your progression off of the gi, and then let everything else be supplemental and let your other side kind of guide you the opposite direction. So that's my opinion, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. It's a little bit of an intro into kind of some of these thoughts that I have, and I wanted to get you guys to thinking about it. Hope you had a great day, and stay tuned to the university for a few more of my opinions if you like them. If not, no worries. Have a great day. God bless.